Where do today's biggest racing games fall on the spectrum between arcade and sim? And where should you start if you want to get into competitive racing? In this video, we're going to try and plot the best of the genre from most arcade to top tier sim. Okay, good, you're still here. Because this is a bit of a thorny issue, isn't it? When we talk about how arcadey a racing game is, some people might hear a value judgment in it, like arcade games just aren't as good as sims. And what about when we try to rank Assetto Corsa and Project Cars by sim kudos? Exactly, absolute carnage, like turn 1 in a Forza 7 online race. Still, we think there's value in arranging these uniformly fantastic titles into some kind of order according to how accessible they are, how quickly you can feel their handling models and start feeling confident with them, and even how you might want to work through them if your end game is, say, picking up a force feedback wheel like the G923 with True Force and entering G Challenge 2021. So let's give it a go. Here's a path through 2021's biggest and best races, from most arcade to most sim. Right then, the first game on the list, the arcade foot in the door that might lead to harder, more dangerous habits, like games with telemetry data and esports championships. For number 1, we've gone with one of the best racing games of all time, Forza Horizon 4. Not only does it look several orders of magnitude better than real life and manage to compress the UK's roads into an uncannily recognisable half-hour road trip, and features the best car collection we've ever been treated to in a game, including a number of early 90s classics that set our hearts ablaze with passion, it's also built on a really meaty handling model. Get used to the behaviour of these beauties in the Edinburgh streets and you'll find yourself right at home in Forza Motorsport 7 too, which is equally gorgeous but a bit more serious in how it goes about racing. The perfect 101 class in PC driving games, basically.
Whoa, Banshees, look out!
Number 2. Still very much in arcade territory, but we're tiptoeing towards more realistic racing and more formal events than Forza Horizon 4. Instead of bunny hopping across the Lake District in a Ferrari F99, here you're racing proper track events in a wide roster of cars that all feel weighty and love being thrown into the inside apex with aggression. Plus the AI is absolutely crazy, and every race is a story worth remembering. Grid is the perfect starting point for racing with a wheel. It's fully compatible with True Force, so when you hook up a Logitech G923 wheel and pedals, you get a really granular style of force feedback that makes it easy to understand what's happening to the car as you make your inputs. Basically, you might end up in the odd sand trap, especially that absolute nightmare at turn 1 of Brands Hatch, but at least you'll know how you got there and how to adjust your driving style next time. Yeah, told you we'd come back to Forza 7. This is where those amazing visuals and that car collection come to play in a more competitive online racing scene. Don't get me wrong though, Forza Motorsport 7 online races aren't iRacing strict, and literally everything you're seeing here would get you disgraced and shunned in some of the more hardcore sims later on in this list. But in a way, that's what Microsoft's game has going for it. It's a kind of playground for testing the waters of online racing, and if you end up shunting someone or being shunted, it's not the end of the world. It's not even, definitely, the end of your bid for race victory. Races are that unpredictable. This is also a nice game for dipping a toe into the car setup waters. You can download tunes from other players and see how they affect your lap times, then take a look into the settings and see what they change to make their car quicker, eventually graduating to working on tunes of your own, if you like. As we approach the midpoint in this list, we're getting to those games that aren't trying for casual fun or an all-out sim. No, they want a bigger audience than either of those crowds, so they blend in the best bits of both. The Codemasters F1 games have been the best at this particular alchemical feat for years now, and F1 2020 represents the top of the pile. It's accessible but deep and demanding with a pad, and many top players in its esports scene compete without a wheel. When you do go to the next level though and plug in a wheel like the G923, you get a real treat for the senses. If you've been getting comfy with car setups and online racing with the previous games on our list, this is a great way to take both to the next level. You'll get penalties for making contact with other drivers here, and sometimes that might feel unfair. Then again, probably does for the real drivers too, doesn't it? Suck it up, clock in the hours with that wheel, and feel the first buds of sim racing mastery forming.
What's very special about this team though is that while the team itself is new to Formula One, so too is its driver and owner.
So far, we've larked about in the English countryside with the best of Auto Trader circa 1991, rubbed halos with Lewis Hamilton, and made a real mess of grid street circuits. Sorry about that. But nothing comes close to the sheer variety of racing disciplines in Project Cars 2. It's a kind of all-you-can-eat buffet of sim racing, taking you from IndyCar to GT to street legal hypercars to tiny little karts that actually provide some of the most fierce racing of all. How much of a sim it is really depends on the settings you dial in. With all the assists on, it's an easy Sunday drive, and when you shed them, it becomes a really demanding drive that's as twitchy and laden with super accurate physics as anything else out there. That makes it a perfect transition game for when you're ready to really embrace sim racing. Okay, this is where things get a bit more full on. Not because rFactor 2 is orders of magnitude more realistic than Project Cars 2, but because it wants you to have a say in what the game actually is. The original rFactor was as much a modding platform as a title in its own right, and number 2 keeps hold of that user-generated content philosophy. There's plenty of cars and tracks baked into the game, but a lot of the community is split into smaller subgroups who tend to play one mod or another. So you might think of this as where you train one specific skill, open wheelers or touring cars, and really get to know the sim racing community around your chosen thing. At number 7 on our list, we're hitting the sims that you can jump into and get some joy out of right away, but also take real dedication to master and hold enough challenge just by virtue of their realism that you can easily while away an evening of hot lapping in a blink. Sims like Assetto Corsa Competizione. The Blancpain license is focused on endurance racing, and while you can undertake some absolutely epic events with gorgeous day-night transitions, there's just as much reward here in the quick 5-lap blasts. Everything on the line, all guns blazing every corner. And with True Force coming through the G923, you get a real sense of precisely how much traction your superpowered GT car has in that exact second, where the weight is, and how close to the limit you really are. Having taken endurance tarmac racing to its apex,
as of today, you are no longer an employee of this organisation.
No? Tough crowd. Let's head off now with Dirt Rally 2. This one's famously difficult. Apparently coating your tyres in butter, soaking the countryside in front of you, and then throwing an absolute barrage of pace notes at you at rap god era Eminem speed. What's anyone gonna do under those conditions, even a seasoned sim track racer? That's right, the ditch. They're going to end up in the ditch. It's a totally different discipline to everything you've learned in the other sims on this list. Gone are the apexes and spotting brake markers and using gears other than second and third. In their stead, a brutal maze of churned up corners, each daring you to take them faster than the last. Even if you're dedicated to track racing in your sim racing career, practicing Dirt Rally 2 is excellent. It's a kind of constant drill for what to do when you lose control of a track car, played out over 5-minute stages. Taking the build-your-own racing sim appeal of rFactor and the considerable cachet of Simbin, famous for the GTR sims, RaceRoom is a place for ultra-competitive, ultra-dedicated esports drivers to get together and fight in a professional, stewarded manner. The pay for the bits you want model might seem a bit confusing at first, but it's basically as simple as picking a series of cars that you fancy and then the track layouts used in the competitions involving those cars. Maybe the bigger learning hurdle is about sporting conduct. This isn't a place to nudge people going into corners or go banzai on the last turn of the race. It's where people race as though there's a real vehicle made of metal and glass under their control, one that would hurt a lot if it made contact with other high-speed collections of metal and glass. You get the point. So, we're at the summit of Mount Sim Racing. Breathe in the air, take in the view, make sure you've got enough oxygen tanks for the way down. Now, we're not saying this is the best driving sim, or that it feels 17.6% more realistic than anything else on the market, because apart from anything else, we've never actually driven these cars on that track, so who are we to know? But what we're saying is, this is where the most serious sim racers tend to gravitate. Because for starters, you need a wheel to compete here, and we don't mean you'll be left behind otherwise, it's literally mandatory to drive with a wheel. Plus, the subscription model, a bit like a gym membership, is for people who know they'll be here for more than just a few hours during a phase that they're going through. iRacing is home to some of the best talent and biggest competitions in sim racing. So, if you really want to prove yourself and hone your skills among the racers who play by the rules, this is the place. And those are our picks. Let the passionate discourse commence about which titles we omitted, what should be higher or lower in the list, and your own picks for the best games to get you started in sim racing. We want to see it all down there in the comments, except any bad-mouthing of that gorgeous 8 series in Forza Horizon 4. That is off limits. Remember to subscribe to us for new videos every week and for the latest info on G Challenge. If we don't bump into you in the Assetto Corsa Competizione lobby, we'll catch you in the next vid.